You're listening to My Far North Cabin, an off-grid homesteading podcast from the woods of Alaska. On this show, we talk all things Alaska, northern life, survival and self-sufficiency skills, and what it's like to live off the grid in the heart of the last frontier. Hi everybody, thanks for being here again. I'm so glad everybody enjoyed the last episode. We talked about surviving extreme cold, and I think a lot of people found some very valuable advice there. It was gratifying to share that information because I think it's so crucial to know that before coming up here to live, especially if you have designs on a rural, year-round off-grid life out here. Having a mindset of survival, it means being proactive and adaptable, and learning about a place before you go, rather than leaping in blind, and learning from your mistakes once you get here. I told my hypothermia story on that last episode, and I definitely work hard to be a proponent of that on this show. It's very rewarding to me that those of you who enjoy this program share it with people who you think would benefit from the information. And I have some big news to share. Recently, I received word that My Far North Cabin was ranked by Feedstock.com as number 9 on their top 15 educational podcast list. I found out that's legitimate. This website ranks podcasts based on listeners and sharing, and I was so stoked to receive this accolade. My goals for this podcast were not just to share my life here, but to do so in a way that was educational and beneficial to others who might need it. So I'm feeling very good about this lately, and it's been very uplifting. I want to take a moment to thank my patrons on Patreon for making this show possible, and if you want to contribute, just visit patreon.com/myfarnorthcabin to become a patron. So everyone knows that I live here in Alaska, known as one of the coldest places on Earth, and I have many episodes about what it's like to live with and survive the cold up here. It's regarded by most as a very extreme environment, and we talk a lot about what it takes to live up here on this show. But what you may not know about me is that I grew up in another extreme environment, the desert. I'm originally from California, but I spent a large part of my childhood and adult life in southern Arizona, in the Sonoran Desert, mostly suburbs in and around Phoenix, which is the hottest city in the United States. It's a place where if you're not adequately prepared, it can also be incredibly difficult to handle. So while the temperatures were hard to live with growing up, I learned how to deal with it, how to dress right, hacks for dealing with the heat, understanding the weather patterns and the wildlife, learning just what it takes to be there. And it's interesting to correlate all that data with the survival techniques I've learned in this extreme environment, where cold dominates my world instead of heat. So I thought it would be cool, no pun intended, to talk about what it's like to spend a lot of time in environments with extremes in temperature. And today, my special guest is a longtime friend of mine from Arizona, Steve, and we came up with this idea to compare notes about living on the edge in these places, because it's something we often talk about. He calls me and Jason all the time. He's visited us up here in Alaska, and back when Jason and I had minimal access to the internet here in our cabin, he is like our tech guy. He'd send us shows and movies, and he called us all the time to make sure we didn't go crazy from cabin fever. So he's one of my best friends, and I hope you guys enjoy our banter today. And I also admit his Pro Tools are much, much better than mine, so he's going to sound a lot better than I do coming through Zoom, but I hope you guys can enjoy it anyway. Steve.
Hi.
Steve Barono. Steve Meister, asking me questions. Really? Yes, really.
Okay.
You earned it. Is it getting hot enough for you down there?
No, it's not too bad yet.
That's because it's February.
Yeah, it's actually perfect. We got overcast right now. It's actually perfect. We might get some rain.
Yeah, but I remember that like November through February is the only tolerable time to be in Arizona.
Oh yeah, it'll start getting hot soon, very quickly.
Oh yeah. Well, we've got wind here that's about 40 miles an hour, and we have a negative 40 wind chill. So that's fun.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess so.
The opposites. It's the
all about
opposites
those opposites, man.
with
It's
us.
oh my gosh, it really is. And for you guys listening to this episode, this was kind of like our brainchild because the weather's always a frequent topic of conversation with people that live in Alaska. We kind of never shut up about it. And in the winter, I'm always griping to Steve about the cold snaps. And in the summer, he gripes to me about the heat waves, so it's only fair. So we share that a lot. And we
Indeed.
both had childhoods in Arizona. We both grew up there, so we have a lot in common. And we didn't know each other as kids, but we had similar experiences back in the day. And I mean, we grew up in one of the hottest places around. So I grew up in Maricopa County, which is actually where you live now, isn't it?
I'm actually in Pinal, but
Yeah,
not too
right.
far.
No, yeah. I grew up in Glendale specifically, and I lived there for 9 years, for those of you who don't know. And when I was in my 20s, I spent some years in Chandler, Tempe, and Central Phoenix. And some of my family still lives in Arizona. I haven't been back in a long time, but honestly, if I did, I'd probably just be hiding out in an air conditioned room because I have zero heat tolerance left at this point. I don't know. Steve, tell the kids at home where you grew up.
Same thing, Phoenix, Arizona, born and raised, desert kid, grew up hot air ballooning with my parents, so very familiar with the desert somewhat. Love the monsoons when they come around because that's usually an indicator that the summer's over. And then comes around March, April, and once it hits 90, you start realizing your next months are going to be miserable. Much like you guys in December or November, probably for you guys, once you start realizing that.
You start questioning your life choices.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Was I was when I was a kid, I remember seeing hot air balloons. It's a really kind of a big thing out in Arizona.
Yeah. My dad was the president of the Hot Air Balloon Club for quite some years. Him and a bunch of friends are the ones that actually really got Monument Valley going, and that's known internationally. So it was him and
Oh,
a bunch of friends that really got that going.
I'll
Um,
see how this shows how much I know about my friend. I didn't know that he was like a fixture with that whole scene.
yeah, yeah, somewhat. It was an interesting childhood. It was fun.
Well, talk about desert kids. Being kids in the desert is definitely memorable. I mean, not always in the best way. I mean, there's a lot of things that stick out to me about my childhood in Arizona. Like almost every house had a pool, or you had access to a pool. I remember chasing the ice cream man around town. I actually got dared by a bunch of kids on bikes to like go find the ice cream truck and bring him to where we all were because he would like skip our neighborhood. And oh my gosh, I don't even know how I survived summer vacations out there just because it was so unbearably hot. We could hardly be outside. It's hard to look back on, especially now that I live in such an extremely cold place, but I don't know. I kind of prefer the extreme cold to the extreme heat, but some people just tolerate it. I don't know. What are some of the things that stick out to you about your childhood in Arizona, especially in the summers when it's like, okay, there's no school. Good luck.
Well, that's the thing I think about uh, with children is they don't know anything better. They grew up whether it's in the hot or the cold, they grew up there. So they have no really reference. I don't think we become complainers until we get older, if that makes sense. Once we
That's
realize
true.
that it could be different, naturally you're gonna tend to be inside. The hot air ballooning ceases in the summer. It's too hot. There's not enough temperature difference. Um, so that activity goes away.
Oh,
Um,
I didn't realize that was really important. Like, I'm totally ignorant about
yeah,
hot air ballooning, and that makes sense. Now I think about it, but I'd never really considered that before.
yeah, it's just too unstable. Well, you're just not getting the lift. It's really about the lift. You're not getting the same lift as you
Hmm,
would in the winter.
yeah, that makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. I remember when they were saying it was getting too hot to where they actually had to ground airplanes and they weren't allowed to take off from Sky Harbor because it was too hot. That happens here when it's too bloody cold. We have the opposite problem.
Yeah,
When our
yeah,
temperatures swing too low, it's dangerous at the other extreme.
yes. The biggest thing I remember is the monsoons. Once those kicked in, they were so fun playing out in the street, uh, making little boats for the gutters. And that
Yeah.
then that slightly changed as I got older. I know you probably experienced it, the heat island effect. Monsoons
Uh,
stopped coming in as much. They weren't as strong, not as frequent. Um, I know you wanted to touch on that one fateful day in 1990s.
Oh yeah. Well, and I feel like that was a lot drier, like because it was in June. The big one that we're talking
Yeah.
about here is a record that Phoenix hit in 1990, June 26. They hit the highest temperature ever recorded in Phoenix, and it holds the record to this day. And it was like a few weeks after my seventh birthday, actually. And it was 122 degrees Fahrenheit. And I got, I don't know if you got one of these too. I don't know where they were selling them, but I got this souvenir t-shirt that had this graphic of an exploding thermometer that read, I took the heat with the date under it. And all I remember about that day is that we were inside. My mom would not allow us to go outside at all unless I had to take the dog to the bathroom. And I remember that there were designated times of day that we were allowed to run the air conditioning so that the grid wouldn't go down. Like certain areas of the neighborhood had a time slot where they were allowed to use their air conditioning, and a lot of that was reserved for the evenings when the sun would go down. So that was wild. We had our ceiling fans going pretty much the whole day, and we were bloody miserable, just popsicles and praying that the power didn't go out. Where were you that day?
Yeah, I had a completely different experience. Um,
Okay, tell me.
for some reason, I don't know why, me and some of my friends decided to walk. I don't know where our bikes were. Why didn't we have our bikes? I have no idea. But we decided to walk from my neighborhood to my other friend's neighborhood.
Oh, good
I th
Lord.
I think our parents were gone, so we didn't have, we can ask them for a ride. So we set out. We didn't even really think about how hot it would be. Um, in the next, this other neighborhood was probably, it's Phoenix, so it's urban sprawl. So the next neighborhood was 5, 10 miles, and it is absolutely the only time we had to jump in people's backyards to jump in the pool, soak our t-shirts, um, just to survive. And
Oh my
later
God.
later on, did we discover that it literally broke records.
Yeah, like, oh, by the way,
Yeah,
it's actually 122 degrees. Oh, geez. Yeah.
but that's kids for you, you know. We don't think about it, when we're that
Yeah.
young.
Yeah. I definitely had my share of going out, in the cold and being completely ignorant out here as much as I have in the heat when I was a kid. You're just like, man, I'm really cold, or man, I'm really hot. Did I forget to check the thermometer today? I don't do that anymore. This place has got me trained. Alaska has got me trained to always look at the thermometer like multiple times a day. And because you have this slow buildup of either being too cold or too hot, where if you don't check in and see what the stats are. I mean, it's funny, like Arizona and Alaska are the only places I've lived where it's habitual to look at the weather forecast every day. Like, what is it doing today? Oh my God, are we in triple digits today? That was like my life when I was down there.
Yeah, I in the summer times I don't check the weather too much because it's just gonna be hot
You just
and miserable.
you just assume it's going to be the
It just
same all the
yeah.
time.
Yeah, you run from the house to the car, flip on the AC, um,
You do the
and
thing where you open the doors of the car to let all of the heat out because it's like an oven. And you let it
yeah.
just breathe for a minute. Oh my gosh.
My
Uh,
first car, I got one of those analog thermometers. Not mercury, but it was like uh a spring thermometer. And that I think the highest I saw it was 160 in the car.
I know. See, that's the thing is that's why we have such strict laws here for the cold, but also in Arizona, there's strict laws for the heat where you can't leave children, animals, basically anybody unattended in a vehicle just parked because you're literally putting them in an oven. It's
Yes.
deadly. It's killed many people. It's killed pets. It's killed. many people, it's very dangerous. And, we have kind of the opposite thing here where, it gets just like a deep freezer. You have somebody sitting out there and you don't leave the vehicle running and leave your heat on, it'll get cold in there really, really fast depending on what the temperature is doing.
And that happens every single year.
Oh
I
yeah.
have not stumbled upon it before, but I will break someone's window if someone's dog is or
Oh,
child is in there. No
oh, me
problem.
too. Yeah. I mean, we both live environments that most people would bill as unforgiving. But since we've
Yes.
spent a lot of time in them, like you're saying, I don't even check the temperature because I know what it's doing. We just know what to do to deal with it. It becomes second nature to us. And I that's definitely happened to me since I've lived here. I mean, the first few years in Alaska were kind of jarring. Like it took me a while to get used to the cycle of the seasons. You have to go through a couple of calendar years in a place and get what it's going to do. I mean, obviously there's going to be wild cards within there because the planet and the climate is changing and all that. And so it can be a little weird from time to time, but you get a basic sense of what it's going to do. I know that it's going to get cold around October. I didn't know that in the beginning. I've said that on other episodes where I was kind of expecting it maybe late November. Nope, October. Maybe sometimes the middle of September, and it's going to go until as late as mid-May. It's been snowing here sometimes up until like May 10th, May 15th before it even starts thawing. So that kind of blew my mind. But now I'm just habituated to it. Now it's just, oh yeah, I just know. And Arizona was like that too. You go like, oh, okay, the monsoon's coming. And the thing is, you're saying you like the monsoons. I like it when it's raining, but when it's not raining, it's just that muggy, humid.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, that's the worst because you can't. One thing that you do to cool yourself down in a hot climate is called evaporative cooling. And that's what he was saying when he was talking about jumping into people's pools and getting your shirt wet because you wear a lot of cotton in Arizona because when it gets wet, it evaporates and when wind hits you, it cools off your skin. And so that's why we wear cotton in Arizona. You don't wear it in Alaska. Cotton will straight up kill you up here.
Yes, I wear a blend most of the time. The cotton helps with the wicking or the evaporative cooling, but I think sort of the synthetic sort of blocks some of the UVs, and it allows you to have a lighter weight. I like the lightweight t-shirts in the summer. It seems to help. For some reason, that's what I've defaulted to. And I love to shave my head. I'm growing it out right now. I do it every winter, try and grow it out, but as soon as this heat hits, I'm usually shaving it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I always had shorter hair in Arizona, but now I've been trying to grow my hair here. I did do a half shave once here in Alaska, and I liked the way it looked, but in the winter, I was like, this is a mistake.
And I know Jason would counter and say the hair would help wicking of the sweat and cool down the temperature. But in on all honesty, if I'm outside doing work outside in that heat, I'm gonna be wearing a hat anyways to block the sun. So with the
Yeah.
shaved head, the bare head, and a hat, it's about the best you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Like hats are absolutely essential. And, loose fitting clothing works really well because you can keep air circulating. You have to work hard to wear black in Arizona because it
Yeah.
absorbs so much heat and it doesn't reflect any UV rays from like light colors. So we're always kind of wearing light colors. Being goth in the desert requires like total commitment.
Yes.
I've learned. And I never understood why, maybe this is just me, but like why do people have black cars in Arizona? I don't get it. I don't get it. Like a dark colored car always is hotter. Every black car I've gotten into, I've just been like, oh, like I'm getting into a hearse.
Probably to hide the dirt because we don't like to wash our cars. But the slightest drizzle of rain just collects dust and dirt.
I know. Well, and we've seen some crazy storms. That's one thing I do like about the monsoons. There's crazy storms with amazing lightning that you can watch, and the weather gets really wild in the desert,
Yeah,
just kind of like it does here.
and that's about the only time I'm looking at my weather apps. See what the next day is or pay attention in the news. Is when is that monsoon coming? When is it coming? When is it coming?
You get a lot of flash floods.
Yes. Got to watch out for that. Not so much in the city, obviously, but once I do live rural and I do
Yeah, you're
have,
rural now. You have to watch out
yes,
for that.
yes. I guess our listeners haven't don't know that yet. Yes, I live rural. I gave up the city life, born and raised. I just wanted away for a while and try out the rural life. So I do have at least one wash that will trap me in, somewhat trap me in. There's a back way if I need to, and it's pretty deep. If it does flood, even a truck can't get through it, let alone a car. Yeah.
Yeah, you do take a lot of risks. You do take a lot of risks living rural because lots of times you deal with the elements more directly than some people. But then again, because you're so far away from the sprawl, you have more options on how you deal with it, and you're not as swamped with other people and cars and traffic on the road, and you can kind of establish a plan of what you're going to do. We have to take precautions like that for wildfires and
Yes.
snowstorms and things like that. We have protocol of what we do, and that's why we keep track of that. But I remember one of the craziest flash floods I ever saw in Arizona. I think I must have been like, 8 or 9, and my entire street flooded. 63rd Avenue just flooded completely. It looked like a river, a straight up river. And my brother kept joking about going and putting a boat in it. And I'm just like, I don't think that's a good idea.
That is still a bad area. I was out, I got trapped out there one time. And
Oh,
yeah, I was driving home during the storm, and literally there was so much water that it inundated the drainage system to the point where that was overpressurized and it was lifting the manhole covers off and push
oh,
them to the side.
oh,
Yeah, it was crazy. I had never seen that. Like I was driving down the road, you can't in about a foot of water or deeper, and you had to you could see the fountain of water coming from the manhole cover, and you had to dodge them. Otherwise, your tires your wheel will go into it. It was fun. That was actually one of my favorite times in the monsoons.
I had a time where I was renting a house in Central Phoenix, and I think this was in 2008. There was a storm during a monsoon season down there that actually next day registered as a Category 1 hurricane. It met all the criteria, and it basically almost flooded my house because the shape of the roof that we you'd never get away with this roof shape in Alaska. Your house would collapse from snow load. It was a flat
Flat.
bowl-shaped roof. You know how those are really common out there. And
Yes.
it would rain in those big surges, and so it filled up the roof because my landlord had not we just moved into the house. The landlord had not cleared the gutters. So the thing
Mhm.
filled up like a bathtub. And where's the drain? Well, the drain was the exhaust pipe for the
Oh,
stove, like over the oven, and it just in there, and we were hearing water cascading somewhere in the house. Like, what is that? And we run to the kitchen. There's a straight up waterfall coming over the oven, just pouring into the kitchen, and we were bailing out water for about 8 straight hours with totes into the sink. I'd fill one up and then I'd take it to the sink, and my roommate would put another one under it. It was yeah, that was no fun. Oh, and the power went out too. So yeah, and that was back before I was prepared for power outages and grid going down and stuff like that. I had never That was a time in my life I never really thought about things like that.
Yeah, and those are some horrible nights. When the power goes out, it's generally during the monsoon with the lightning. Either lightning strikes a transformer or the utilities will take a preemptive and shut down. They do that actually in my here area out here. Not so much in Phoenix. Usually it's because of a transformer blew. But if you lost your power during the monsoons, if it takes all night to come back on, you're sitting in that 90%
Muggy.
humidity.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, that's the worst. And even in the height of summer, the peak of summer, when we've got that dry, intense, you got those really dry, intense temperatures, the grid can go down just from everybody yanking on it too hard.
From an overload, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's why they had, like I mentioned, those regulations where they had to say, hey, you can't be running your air conditioning from X to X time because it'll overload the grid and no one will get to have it. So, yeah, I mean, the dry heat, you can deal with that to a certain extent. There's lots of ways to deal with extreme heat, just like there's ways to deal with cold. We learn this when we're kids, like you talked about how you dress. Evaporative cooling is big. I really liked those spritz bottles that have the fan. It takes like little AA batteries. You've seen those where you can
Yes.
fill the water bottle and sprit. Those are great. And obviously, a lot of us had access to pools. You know, if you live out there, we had a lot of access to swimming pools and also protecting yourself from getting sunburn. I sunburn like a lobster. And I got a lot of the worst ones I've ever had have been in Arizona, but I've gotten some bad ones here because of the snow. And I didn't know that
Yeah.
when we first moved here, because like in spring, 'cause even now the sunlight is getting really high in the sky. And I didn't realize, kind of like just being on a lake on a sunny day where, you know, you've got the UV rays reflected up at you coming off the surface of the water. That's how I got some really bad sunburns in Arizona from being in the pool. It happens off the snow. It'll reflect
Hmm.
the UV. I learned about snow blindness, and I always have UV blocking sunglasses on. And I make sure that sometimes I even wear sunscreen as early as, you know, March and April out here, just on my face, because I'll come in and be like, oh God, I got sunburned.
Yeah. It would happen to me going snowboarding, especially when I did we go spring snowboarding because then you can like go in t-shirt weather. It's almost t-shirt.
Hmm.
And yeah, you come home and you can feel the burn, slight burn on you.
Yeah, it's something people don't really think about when it comes to snow. You think like, oh, I don't have to worry about that. Yeah, yeah, that was a hidden a hidden
Yeah.
danger I had to learn about. But in Arizona, you know, I was just the whole smell of the summer is just sunscreen to me, just because I'm so pale. Like my mother always just slathered me with sunscreen as
Yeah,
I would
or
just have
stay
burned so
inside.
easily. Yeah, or stay inside, yeah. And that reminds me of when I was a kid there, and maybe this is just, you know, you're Gen X. I call myself a Zennial, which is between Gen X and Millennial because 1983, you know, it's a small window. I'm owning it. Um, us Gen Xers, Zennials, we're all hard because we had PE gym outside. No,
Hmm.
no gym, really. A lot of us didn't have a gym. We had to do it outdoors. Like my school didn't have a gym. Did yours? Like in elementary school? Maybe I mean, high school would have a gym, but like elementary school?
Not until eighth grade. They built a
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you would think that would be important to people. Your kids are going to be outside. You know,
It
I'm out there doing calisthenics and it's 110 degrees.
it was a
Something's off.
different time. Different time.
It was
And
a different time.
and like I said, kids don't notice as much
No.
because it's just it is what it is.
Well, I'm sure you've seen some of the same nostalgic posts that I have on social media of like the long metal slide that we all used to love until they ripped them out. And we're like, why did they get rid of the slide? Like, oh, because people were getting third degree burns off the slides. Like, oh, well. You know, something that I wanted to throw in here really quick. It was interesting to talk about for comparison's sake. In the last episode, I got into what hypothermia is all about and what happened when I've experienced it. I've had a few brushes with it a couple of times here. But on the other end of the spectrum, we have hyperthermia, which is what happens when you can't regulate your temperature anymore because you're too hot. And in Arizona, I've had heat cramps and I've had mild heat exhaustion during some really dry, hot days out there, mostly when I had to ride in a car or drive my car and have no air conditioning. And then you get wherever you're going that has air conditioning and you get in and you feel like you're just going to pass out. And that's the closest I've ever gotten to being too hot. I've never been hospitalized or anything. I did experience mild hyperthermia when I went to Indonesia, but that was because it was 95 degrees with 90% humidity, which is why I say I hate the monsoon because evaporative cooling doesn't work when there's just so much humidity in the air.
Yes. I've never been hospitalized either. I know I've been at the brink. I can't really name any good instant. Um, and that probably comes from just learning, as a kid. You learn and you don't even think about it. Does a kid up there in Alaska, do they really have to know to stay indoors, be told to stay indoors? Maybe they do. I don't know. I don't have kids. Um,
No, it's a good question. I think that it's just like anything here. I mean, kids are going to go out and do whatever they're going to do. I see them, either dressed up, all bundled up, or they're just wearing regular clothes, like the kids that get out of school and walk to the grocery store or something. I'm like, why are they wearing that? Oh, yeah, it's Alaska. They grew up here. So, I mean,
the
you
thing,
can get habituated to it.
yeah, the thing is you learn, right? I got really bad sunburn because I thought, hey, I'm going to the river and it's a little bit high desert from, the valley. So I'll be fine. And that was the worst sunburn I've ever gotten. And I've never had a sunburn since. Um, it's like your mom telling you, don't touch the stove, it's hot. Once you do it once, you're not going to do it again.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
so I've never let myself get to the point of hyperthermia. I recognize the signs quicker. Um,
Yeah,
nausea, dizziness,
yeah,
mainly irritability. You're just getting
yes,
yes.
yes,
Uh,
and muscle aches and headaches. You get
yes.
headaches, you feel faint, you feel like you want to just go lay down and go to sleep, but you just kind of just feel like you're going to pass out. Um, there's a lot. What's funny is that the symptoms for when you're nearing hyperthermia are very similar for hypothermia. Your body kind of overreacts in the same way it tries to overcompensate to keep you stable, like dizziness, fainting, fast heart rate, fatigue, low blood pressure, all that stuff is also synonymous with hypothermia. Your body essentially goes into panic mode because it's like, I can't regulate this anymore. I need help. And so when it comes to hyperthermia, if you are going to a hot climate anytime soon, it's good to know what to do. I mean, you move into a cool, shaded environment, you remove tight, heavy clothing, drink lost electrolytes. Sometimes that's better than water sometimes, especially if you've been sweating a lot. And
Yes.
you definitely stop physical activity. Don't do anything. Try not to do anything because there's a lot of strain on your heart at this point. Cool compresses, misters, ice packs, like all of that is really big for
M-
when getting inside an air conditioned building is really your best bet for
My
dealing with that.
go-to is if I'm outside working on the property, working in the hot shed, um, 10-15 minute intervals. I have a lot of old kitchen towels and I soak those and I throw them around my neck. They'll pre For one, it'll prevent your neck from getting burnt and it will cool you down. Wear a brimmed hat, a full brim, like, not cowboy hat. I mean,
No,
it'll work. It'll work. That's fine. I mean, that's what it's for. And mainly just intervals, always taking breaks to cool down.
yes. Same with the cold. Do you take breaks? We depending on what the temperature range is. Just like with you, you got triple digits, it's even more, okay, we got to really, really space this out. Just like here when we have negatives, depending on what range of the negatives we're in, we go, okay, we're going to really limit our exposure. Like right now, even though it's sunny outside, I would be limiting my time out there today because of the wind chill factor, because just the temperature of the wind chill is enough to potentially cause frostbite on my skin if I'm out there for too long, even within 10 minutes. So, yeah, same deal here.
Yeah. And I can tell when it's really, really bad because I wear glasses. And if I'm sweating so profusely that I can't even wipe it fast enough that it doesn't drip on my glasses and it's
Oh,
dripping my glasses, then I know it's really bad.
oh goodness. That's
Yeah.
a good one. I would know the
Yeah.
tells too, where I would start to feel dizzy and I'd be hydrating or whatever, and I would just not go away. I'm like, I have to cool down. It's imperative at this point. And I know those signs in me with the cold too. And we talked about that in the last episode, where usually the first thing that happens to me when I get too cold is I have panic attack like symptoms, which is kind of bizarre. Like I'll get adrenaline and fast heart rate, but it's not a panic attack. It's your body starting to go into fight or flight mode because it senses that there's a problem. And I get that in the heat too. That's like my first warning system. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately, you have to go through being too hot or being too cold in an extreme environment a couple of times to really know, okay, I need to deal with this. And also know
Yeah.
when to call 911. Obviously, know when to call 911 or go to a hospital. Don't play around with that.
Yeah. I want to say irritability is a big sign, but that might just be me pissed off that
No,
I'm
no,
doing
no, no.
work
That's
in the outside when it's hot.
well, most people in Arizona are very irritable because of the heat. It actually,
Yeah.
when you expose yourself to too much heat for too long and you don't do things like take breaks and regulate yourself and cool yourself down, it can actually give you brain damage. And that's a very, very common thing in a hot
Oh yeah.
environment is brain damage. And so there are a lot of good reasons to really protect yourself. And if you have a choice and you don't have to move to a hot climate and you think that you might be at risk, like if you have an elderly person with you, you have children, you're not really particularly fit, you're really going to have to be careful and take a lot of precautions, just like you would out here with the cold.
Yeah.
There are vulnerable groups.
Yeah. And just like a flu, if you have a high temperature, yeah, it can actually cause brain damage.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
Ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. So taking care of yourself is definitely paramount. But when it comes to things like another big similarity between our environments is that we have weird growing seasons. Like I know I don't are you big on gardening or do you like have you been wanting to do more of that or have you when was the last time you gardened?
It's been a bit. I've had some successful gardens out here and a lot of failures. We are doing one this year. My sister, it's her project. I want her. I'm sneaking around and helping a little bit watering if she doesn't water. But mainly, I want her to realize how much work it takes.
It does take a lot of work, especially in a place that's really, really hot or really, really cold. Like my mom and my grandma were really big gardeners in Arizona. And that's kind of where I was first exposed to it. My grandma had a big garden on her property in Glendale, and she grew a lot of citrus, tomatoes, root vegetables, corn, all that. And so did my mom. But they had to obviously water it as much as possible, amend their soil because those kind of the soil is a bit weird in Arizona. And they had to be very picky about what they grew at what times because you've got kind of two sort of growing seasons in Arizona.
Yes.
In and around the peak of the summer is kind of what you guys work around.
Yeah. Yeah. That's when plants die.
That's when plants
That's
die.
yes. And that's when shade actually comes into play when you're gardening.
Yeah.
So if you could get something going in the spring and harvest before the dead heat.
Hmm.
Um, and we s- and you could pretty much do another round in
In the fall.
or even the monsoons. Like
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's
yeah,
some things that'll do well then too that don't mind humidity, more tropical zone plants.
I
See,
mean
like
that's what the natives did. They
yeah.
they they really relied on the monsoons and they had canals. They had a system of conserve the water that they got when they did get rain. Um, have you heard of the Three Sisters?
Yes, yeah. The corn, beans, and squash, right? The
Yes.
corn gives the stock for the beans to grow up, and the squash shields the roots and protects it from bugs, I think. I think that's how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And you could probably I never really thought about it, but you could do that in the spring and then again at when the monsoons start.
Yeah. And
Because that's our dry time is gonna be June, July is our dry
yeah,
time.
yeah, that's when it's a losing battle at that point. I mean, you can try, you really can, but it, you're going to have more success working around that time. And I've had to learn some tough lessons about gardening here, and I want to do a gardening episode about Alaska, but I have to be honest, I haven't had a lot of success here, but some of that is infrastructure related, which is a big deal, especially if you're going to garden in an extreme place where you have a lot of elements that you're dealing with all the time. I I miss my days in Oregon. You could sneeze on something and then it would grow a plant. Like in gardening in Oregon was so easy. And now that I'm here, I regret some of the you know the crops that I was able to grow out there, because I not only have a lot of things that want to eat my garden, but we have a very short growing season. Like we have to start plants like now in
Yeah.
February indoors, until late May or early June, which is when the danger of frost is basically past here. Um, I've had problems with plants not doing well because of the 24 hours of daylight. Because in Alaska, we have that problem where we have too much light and it can cause problems with plants and slugs, bunnies, moose eating my garden. That's a problem here. Um, and I've lost crops and it can be very frustrating. But a road to a successful garden is paved with dead plants.
That's a good saying. Yeah.
it's it's painful. It's a painful journey, but I've had a lot of failures with it. But I don't know. Every winter I find myself starting plants again. I've got new seeds. I got to get some soil here in a couple of days to do more starts. And I'm trying to build a greenhouse this year, which I think will actually work because that's really important in Alaska is that our temperature zone, our ranges can be so wacky that certain plants just don't handle it well. And if you want to have like tomatoes, bell peppers, zucchini, that kind of thing, they do much better in a greenhouse here in Alaska. I guess a greenhouse in Arizona, if it was in the summertime, would just straight up kill plants because it would be too hot.
Yeah. And one of my priorities right now is trees. I need to get trees on the property. Um,
Yeah,
not just for
trees,
privacy. I want it for privacy
shade,
mainly, but shade. Yes.
shade.
A-
Oh,
And
it's all about shade.
and creating a microplant climate. There's
Microclimate,
some
yeah.
yeah, there's some older properties around here where they've been here for 20 plus years and they got nice big trees. And
Yeah.
I bet you anything you could walk on their property and their temperature drops like 5 or 10 degrees.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's amazing. Like it's funny whenever you're parking in Arizona, like we're always parking near that one tree, even if it's tiny, because it gives you
Yeah.
a little bit of shade. You find the
Yeah.
one tree and park under it, even if it's gonna leak sap or whatever, you don't care because you'll have the coolest car in the entire parking lot. But yeah, shade's a really big one.
If you can get a good mesquite grown over nice canopy over your garden, that'll give just enough shade and just the perfect amount of sunlight too.
Speaking of plants, I actually first learned to forage in Arizona when I was a little girl. I used to collect prickly pear fruit with my mom, and it's so good. And it actually helped me rebuild a positive relationship with prickly pear cactus after I crashed my bike into one like 5 days after we first moved to Glendale. That was fun. I don't know. Ever been attacked by a cactus, Steve?
No, it's back to the learning when you're young.
Okay. I guess that's when I
Maybe
learned.
maybe I did. I just don't remember it. I mean, all the times I was out hot air ballooning in the desert, I'm sure I got into all types of cactuses. I do have a very good memory of my mom getting attacked by a jumping cactus.
Oh, jumping cholla. Oh, that stuff's
Yeah,
the
choya.
worst. Isn't it?
Yes.
Don't they also call it teddy bear cholla? Like,
Yeah, I think so. I
yeah,
we just
it's
call them jumping cactuses because the slightest brush against them and they will come off and cling to your
yeah,
body.
yeah. They it's almost like they're spring loaded. You get too
Yes.
close to them and they jump right onto you, and it's
Yeah.
really difficult to get them removed, and it's very painful if it gets into your skin. Very painful.
Yeah. And every year I make the mistake of picking a fruit off a prickly pear and my fingers I have to pick up
Steve,
hairs out of my finger.
Steve, there is foraging protocol with prickly pear.
I know, but it always looks like you can get your fingers in between the
I know.
spikes,
No,
and
no.
you're not gonna get hit, but always do.
No. It's because
Yes.
it's all because that's the thing about cactus. It's not just the spikes that you can see, it's the microfibers that you can't see.
Yes. Yes.
Those are the worst because it's not just the spine it gets you. It's like when you were to zoom on it with a microscope, it's all those tiny little fibrous ones, and those are the ones that irritate you for days, sometimes weeks afterward. And it can
Yes.
be really, really, really awful. And so, yeah, well, having cactus encounters is a quintessential part of a desert childhood. It's the funny thing about the desert. It's just, as David Attenborough would say, it's teeming with life.
Absolutely.
That's really cool. What's the most recent critter that you've seen out there? Because you're rural, so you see a lot more critters than you would in the city.
I've recently seen the Roadrunners start coming out again. I absolutely
Oh,
love them.
roadrunners! I used to see them all the time. I love them.
Yeah, and being born in the city, born and raised in the city, I'd see them every once in a while, hot air ballooning, but the area I'm in now, they are just we're teeming with them. They're everywhere.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
cool little birds. The biggest thing right now that's came up with me and my coworkers around here is, are we seeing badgers or are they coatimundi?
I
Coatimundi.
think it's the second one. I looked it up yesterday, actually. I was curious about that. I think it's the second one. I I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, but I think you just did.
Coatimund.
Cotamundi?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah, that's what they are. And you have raccoons in Arizona. A lot of people don't know that there are raccoons and
Y-
coyotes and, you know,
Yes. Bobcats. We even have deer. Um,
yeah,
they'll
yeah.
even come down into the desert.
They would tell you that I saw two bobcats having a fight off the side
Yeah,
of the road.
nice.
That was crazy. There was just fur flying everywhere. I'd never seen anything like that before. Like animals actually engaged in the life or death struggle. I've never seen that before. It was bizarre.
I have
Um,
yet to see a bobcat. Um, I hope I
oh,
see one.
really?
Yeah.
You will. You will. I've yet to see a lynx. They're practically the same animal, just for
Mm,
here. That's the bobcat of the north.
yeah. Um, did you know that we used to have grizzly bears? I looked this one up just for this little section.
No, I knew that there were black bears in Arizona, but
Yeah.
I had no idea about brown bears being out there.
We used to have the Mexican grizzly bear. The last known
What?
one was in 1976, shot in Sonora, Mexico. So I don't know if they got this far north, but we are in the Sonoran Desert.
Yeah, yeah,
And
the
they,
Sonoran Desert.
yeah. I mean, California had their own grizzlies.
That's
Um,
true. I guess it makes
yeah,
sense now that I think about it. Wow.
yeah. So,
That's a
so they
fun
were,
fact.
yeah. The Sonoran De Desert has pretty much a version of most things, and most of the times they just look desert looking.
Yeah.
They got the
Well,
desert camouflage going.
they have that look. They all got the look. Every
Yeah.
desert creature has a look because of just how intense it is out there. I mean, I've seen I've seen javelina in
Yes.
Sedona when I was camping. I had a mama javelina and her little piglets ran through my campsite, and they were so cute. I didn't do anything. I just kind of hung back and just went, "Ooh, don't mind me," but they were very cute.
Yeah.
I've seen Gila monsters, Western diamondback rattlesnake. I had one encounter with one. I saw it coiled up, and I just gave it a wide berth. It rattled at me a little bit, but I just left it alone. And man, I'll never forget when you had to dispatch that snake in your yard to protect your dogs that one time, and then you showed me that the body kept moving for like hours. And I should have expected that. I remember my friends used to catch lizards, and you get them by the tail will detach and keep moving. It's a defense mechanism, muscular reflex. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was more than a couple hours. I went to sleep and woke up and it was still slightly moving.
That's crazy, man. Nature is
Yeah.
amazing.
And just so people
Nature is
know,
amazing.
I had to do it. I tried shushing it away and it just kept coming back.
Yeah,
And I didn't have the tongs to grab it myself and throw it in a bucket. And I should have called somebody, a specialist, because they will pretty much come out and do it for free.
it was at
Um,
night too, so I think it was
yeah,
you were in a bind
I was
for
in a
dealing
bind.
with it. That you got Steve has dogs and they go outside, and when you live rural you have more dangers like
Yeah.
that. And so he had to take care of that. I remember when I was a kid going into the garage to get my bike, I was terrified of black widow spiders because they're
Yes.
such a big deal out there. I've never got bit by one. I've seen many of them. But yeah, that's I don't, as they say, I don't F around and find out with spiders. I'm a proponent of saving spiders. I don't kill one unless I absolutely have to. I put them outside most of the time. But if they're not really a venomous spider, well, venomous doesn't really, for anybody listening, venomous doesn't necessarily equate to dangerous. It just doesn't always mean it's venomous to humans. But I
Yeah.
look but don't touch if I don't have to. But I'll keep spiders in the corner if they're not hurting anything for pest control because we have so many mosquitoes in summer. And Steve knows this. I never shut up about it in June and July when mosquito season hits in Alaska. I need my spiders then.
Yeah, I used to think I was arachnophobic, but I'm not. Living in Oregon for that little amount of time, I realized I just grew up with being surrounded by black widows.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Steve and I were roommates briefly in Oregon, and we had a spider
Yes.
living in our bathroom window that he named Charlotte, and it was like an orb weaver, and we took
Yes.
care of it and protected her at all costs.
Yeah. And once you start realizing that, um, I I don't mind spiders at all anymore. Yeah, one of my favorite ones, sort of like a spider, sort of like a scorpion. It's the camel spider. Yeah.
Not that, not that. Okay, I am a little scared of that one.
They're not
Nope.
poisonous. They're not poisonous.
I know, but they're
We've all
scary
seen
looking.
the videos, right?
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and I had to look it up. Those the ones in the Middle East do get bigger.
they
They can get
do.
up to 6 inches. Uh, the biggest I've seen here is about 3 inches. But they really don't want anything to do with humans. I pick them up now all the time, and they do not want to bite us.
Yeah.
and and their pest control, they actually will um supposedly eat scorpions and black widows too.
Yeah, see, that's the thing is that when you live in a rural setting and you're closer to nature, you begin to understand the function that everything has in an ecosystem. And you realize that these things really don't want to mess with me. Unless I'm doing something to bait an animal or provoke an animal, they're going to basically leave you alone. That's I get the occasional moose wander through my yard. And obviously, if there are garden greens, it's going to check them out because why not? But I'm not going to, you know, kill it. If it's going to eat my broccoli, it's going to eat my broccoli. I wasn't smart enough to put up a fence or what have you. I have to accept that I'm in their territory, you know?
Yeah, and you got to mitigate too. Recently, one of my dogs got bit by a rattlesnake.
Yes. Oh, it was Rufus, right? Poor
Yeah,
Rufus.
Rufus.
Yeah.
We paid a lot of money on the bills,
Yeah.
and
That was a big one.
I've learned from the local community groups that most people don't even take their dogs in anymore. They just give them some Benadryl and let them suffer, unfortunately.
Oh,
Um,
that's sad.
it's sad. It's hard. Um, but hopefully they learn their lesson. Um, but
True.
it's so expensive. What I've done to mitigate is in my fence on my fence I installed snake fencing,
Yeah,
and
snake fence.
that's a wire mesh fence, and they tell you to do 40 inches high, and that will prevent any of the big ones. They'll try and get up, but it's so smooth that the big snakes will just fall right over. And then the mesh needs to be a quarter inch wide to
Right.
prevent any of the babies getting in. Because a half inch, the babies can still get in.
Ah, see, that's important. You have to think about more than just the adults. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so now I've got a 60 by 70-foot fence area for the dogs that are completely snake proof. There's one other danger I have to look out for the dogs, and that's the Sonoran bullfrog. I had a good monsoon season. Was it last year? But anyways, they finally came out. If it's too dry, they won't come out of hibernation. Rufus did bring one inside, but luckily, I don't know why. The frog did not secrete enough, or Rufus seemed like he was acting a little weird. But they secrete a poison, and the dogs can
Yes.
actually die from it.
Yes. For those who don't know, those bullfrogs are poisonous. And it's
Yeah.
when the monsoons happen in Arizona, it's straight up biblical how those bullfrogs emerge and just take over everything. They used to hop inside our classroom at school
Oh,
when we were
really?
younger. Yeah. Oh, no joke. But we were right near the canal.
Okay.
So they'd come up out of it and they just hop in it'd be funny. All the girls are like, "Eh," and I'm just like, this is so cool. I'm there with the boys, right?
Yeah.
Just like, whoa, catch it, and they're all like, don't touch it, So we had a visitor in our yard a few weeks ago that had to make sure that Maggie was inside for it. It was a porcupine.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a pretty big porcupine visitor, and that's one where you don't want the dog to F around and find out because you
No.
get a spine to the face. But there is a secret of getting a porcupine quill out of an animal's face if that happens. Porcupine quills operate like a harpoon. They're spring loaded. They're under tension. So the secret is if you take clippers and you clip the quill in half, then that tension will release and then you can just pull it
Mm.
right out. Some people just go wailing on it. You can't because it's hooked in there now like a harpoon. So that's the secret to getting porcupine quills. As rural folk, we have to know this stuff. So, I was going to say, let's talk for just a second before we're out of time about what do you think people don't, in your opinion, what the people don't realize before they move to the desert? like in Arizona, for example. Like when folks move to Alaska, they're often dismayed by not just how cold it is in winter, but how long it lasts and lots of other things. So what do you think about that?
Heat's number one.
It seems so
It's
obvious,
gotta
but
be. Yeah, I mean, we get so many people coming here escaping the snow, but to a lot of people, it's worth it. They don't want to dig the. They're tired of shoveling snow.
yeah,
Um,
I can
and
understand
so
that.
and so they're willing to hibernate for 4 or 6 months out of the year. You know,
That's true.
they understand they're trading one for the other. Um,
Yeah,
my mom was the same way. She was in Minnesota, and as soon she had four older siblings, and as soon as each one hit 18, they moved to California
it's true.
to
And I'm
get
originally
away.
from California, for those of you who don't know, but I did spend many years in Arizona because it's next door and all. But yeah, I agree that there's people that just can't do winter anymore. And I definitely understand that. But I guess I feel like cold is easier to fix than hot.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the snowbirds would choose the north if they had to choose um one or the other.
It's going to keep getting hotter. You have to adapt to it every single year. And we have to adapt to Alaska every single year. It throws something new at us. Either the winter gets a lot colder or the summer gets more intense or dry. Like we had a heat wave here a few years ago on July 4th, actually, where we hit a record. It was like 100 degrees. That was a record for here for how hot it could get. And we were in danger of wildfires and all that stuff. So
Yeah, I mean
things change.
last year we had the longest amount of days over 100. I forget the number of days, but it's just unrelenting.
Yeah, that's a good word. I prefer living in a colder climate with winter. I mean, winter is very difficult to deal with, but to me, it's not as difficult as a summer in Arizona. So I
Yeah,
salute you.
you can't strip down to your underwear and go to the grocery store here.
No. Oh my gosh. Well,
There's only so many layers you can take off.
yeah, what am I going to peel my skin off?
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. Well, there's only so many quick trips that you can hide in the freezer section, you know.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
and even some cars have a difficulty keeping up
Yeah.
with their AC,
Hmm.
especially on those 115 days.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of off-gridder or people that are wannabe off-gridders that think about moving to the desert because it might be less logistically difficult than coming to a place like this. But I mean, every place you go, you're exchanging one set of difficulties for another. So, like we say on the show,
Yeah,
like get to know what they are before you go. Look before you leap is is the thing to do. So, I'm glad that we could talk about all this stuff because it's interesting to, you know, compare our environments to each other because they are very radical, but they are very alike in that sense. And a lot of people are very interested in it. So thanks
yeah.
for
You just made me realize you probably have a lot more fully off grid people than we do.
maybe.
Only known a couple of people that were fully off grid. That I mean, like using a generator. It's
Yeah,
I'd say it's a small percentage here of people that are fully off the grid. Most people are going to be connected to electricity for
that's true.
either swamp or for AC. Swamp
Well,
cooling, evaporative cooling. Yeah.
yeah, I have a good friend, Morgan of Rogue Preparedness. She lived off grid in Arizona for a long time, and hats
I'd,
off to her. She did it and
yeah.
she gardened, she thrived out there. I'm like, wow, girl, how did you do that? I couldn't have done it. I'm impressed. So there are people that will do it. Sometimes it's also because of the cost of the land is cheaper if you're going to buy land,
It
and
can be done.
it
And
can be done.
especially with the proper building style, Pueblo type,
It's
with
true.
passive cooling.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to get around it, semi subterranean building, natural building where, that's that's more possible in certain areas where the zoning is not as restrictive. You have to look into it. Sometimes that's more of an option for people, but like, I'd rather be in a place that's not so hot and where I don't have to worry about water so much. So, you know,
Yes.
I guess that's the takeaway. There's hacks to life in a very hot or a cold place. It's not for everybody. And sometimes you have to live in an extreme environment because you have no choice, or it's just what you have to do at the moment. And other times you really want to be there and you're all in. Either way, places like where we live, they require a lot of planning, awareness, commitment, and we definitely have that in common. So thanks for sharing this stuff with me. I thought this was a really cool idea. Thanks for having this idea with me. This is really cool.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I thought it'd be a nice contrast.
Yeah, contrast. Ah, I see what you did there.
Yes.
All right, dude. Well, I
All
will
right.
talk to you later since we talk all the time.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, dude.
All right.
Thanks for being
Bye.
here. So, I hope you guys enjoyed me and my buddy Steve doing a little cross evaluation of our hot and cold environments. I know I got reminiscing a little bit there about my desert childhood, but I honestly would much rather be in a temperate climate or one like this because hot is not really something I can handle anymore. I could barely handle it then. Even though I learned to deal with it, I still didn't like it, especially not now. I maintain that cold is much easier to fix than hot. So, some of the things that Steve and I didn't have time to touch on were we wanted to talk a little bit more about rainwater collection during floods and kind of the ins and outs of that and some of the legalities of rainwater collection. And also, we forgot to mention that in Arizona, we were talking about how to survive during the day when it's hot. Well, it's really common to be active at night and early in the mornings before the heat really sets in. So, I and he have both done a lot of that in Arizona. The nightlife is really big because you're basically a vampire during the summer. So, living in extreme places like the Sonoran Desert or the Boreal Forest both have their challenges. And I think that the mindset that I developed having to endure a very hot place for years gave me the mental tolerance to withstand the challenges that I now face up here in the Great North. Both environments require awareness and preparedness, and they've taught me a lot about survival. Not to mention, these days, since we live in a world of unpredictable weather patterns and temperature extremes, which are likely going to get more intense every single year, I am very grateful for the education that I've received by nature up to this point on how to deal with those things and to stay adaptable. So I want to thank you all for listening to this podcast, and I want to thank my patrons on Patreon again for making this episode possible. If you want to support the show, just go to patreon.com/myfarnorthcabin to become a patron for just $3 a month. It really helps me out, and it keeps the show going. I also want to thank Steve for coming on the podcast today. I appreciate you, buddy, and thank you for sharing your experiences with us on here today. I'll be back next month with a new episode, so you can find me on Instagram at myfarnorthcabin for updates on the show and new episodes. Until then, keep building that homesteading and survival mindset, and stay wild.